Before we dive into today's case, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment below. Every like, comment, and subscription helps me continue creating these in-depth crime investigations and real-life mystery stories for you. At first glance, this photo looks like nothing more than an ordinary picture of a 4-year-old girl, standing and smiling. But the truth is that the place where this photo was taken was the scene of her mother, Loretta Jones's murder. And the girl was unknowingly carrying a terrifying secret that would take more than 45 years to uncover, until authorities finally identified the real killer, who had been present in that very photograph the entire time without anyone noticing. The story begins on July 30th, 1970, when a 10-year-old girl named Lori Cox was playing outside her house with her younger brother. Her brother got bored and went inside, so Lori kept playing alone on her bicycle. After about half an hour, realizing it was getting late, she decided to head home. As she walked down the path leading to her house, she noticed a man walking behind her, watching her, and she tried to quicken her pace. But the man caught her off guard, put his hand over her mouth, and grabbed her, trying to flee. Fortunately, Lori managed to scream loudly enough that the neighbors heard her and rushed outside. Realizing the neighbors were coming, the attacker dropped her and fled before anyone could catch him. Lori's family called the police as soon as they confirmed she was safe. Strikingly, that same night, while police were still searching for the attacker, a brutal murder occurred in the very same area. The victim was a woman named Loretta Jones, who lived just 5 houses away from Lori's family. This all took place in Price, Utah, a small town with a population of fewer than 9,000, known for its quiet character, which made a murder there extremely rare. Loretta Jones was a 23-year-old single mother living with her 4-year-old daughter, Heidi, far from her family as she sought better job opportunities to build a decent life for them. Despite her young age, she went out of her way to provide for her daughter, even making her clothes and toys by hand. On the evening of July 30th, 1970, Loretta sat watching TV with her daughter. At bedtime, she tucked Heidi in and insisted she not leave the room no matter what happened or what she heard. She kissed her, closed the door, and left the room. The next morning, July 31st, Heidi woke up to an unusual silence and couldn't find her mother in the house. Remembering her mother's warning, she peeked through the doorway and saw the place in disarray, with something strange on the floor that she initially mistook for a pile of clothes. She decided to go out, and when she reached the living room, she discovered that what she'd seen was her mother's body, lying in a large pool of blood. Not fully grasping what was happening, Heidi left the apartment and ran into their neighbor, who was usually up early tending his garden. He called out to her to join him, and she replied that her mother appeared to be dead and that there was blood everywhere. The neighbor rushed inside, was shocked by what he saw, picked Heidi up, hurried back out, and called the police. When police arrived, they found that Loretta had been stabbed 17 times across different parts of her body. Investigators noted there was no sign of forced entry and no indication she had fought back. Even stranger, neither the neighbors nor even her own daughter had heard any screaming or cries for help, despite the number of wounds. Investigators theorized that she may have endured the attack in silence to protect her daughter from waking up and facing the danger. The autopsy showed she had been killed with a small knife and had been sexually assaulted. Since the crime occurred in 1970, when DNA testing was still in its infancy, and with no surveillance cameras available, investigators had no easy way to identify the killer. Investigators questioned Heidi about the last time she'd seen her mother, and she confirmed she hadn't heard anything all night. Detectives connected the timing of the attempted kidnapping with the timing of the murder, noting only a few minutes had separated the two events, and that the fleeing attacker had been heading in the direction of Loretta's house. Using Lori's detailed description of her attacker, they launched a broad manhunt, questioning a large number of people without success. After the criminal investigation concluded, the body was released to the family for burial, and young Heidi attended the funeral before going to live with her grandmother. Despite her age, the memory of that night stayed with her. She often wondered why her mother hadn't cried out for help, and as a child, her drawings repeatedly returned to the image of the coffin where she'd said goodbye to her mother. Police continued an intensive search for months without results, until about 6 months after the murder, they arrested a 30-year-old man named Thomas Egley, who was staying at a hotel in Helper with his pregnant girlfriend. Suspicion fell on him because he had left Helper for Price just hours before the murder, and because his description matched the one Lori had given of her attacker. During questioning, Thomas denied involvement in either incident, claiming he had spent the night moving between several modes of transportation before entering a bar in Price around 11:30 p.m. and leaving around 3 a.m. to head home. The bar owner confirmed he had indeed been there at that time, but she also noticed he seemed extremely nervous and had reddish stains on his shirt that he tried to hide, claiming they were paint. Thomas was placed in a police lineup, and Lori identified him immediately and without hesitation as the man who had tried to abduct her. He was charged only with attempted kidnapping, since there wasn't enough evidence to charge him with the murder, even though investigators were convinced he was responsible. He served 90 days in prison before being released and moving to Colorado. The case went cold for years due to the lack of evidence. The family never recovered from the trauma. Loretta's father died 4 years after her murder, and her mother refused to even hear her name spoken again. As for Heidi, she carried the weight of that night through the rest of her childhood and into adulthood, burdened by a constant sense of responsibility to get justice for her mother. She repeatedly tried reaching out to the FBI and local police to reopen the case, with little response. In 2009, 40 years after the murder, when Heidi was 44, she was contacted through an ordinary social media post by an officer named David Price, who offered to help her with an unrelated case involving a stolen car. She realized he was an old friend from school and seized the opportunity to ask for his help reopening her mother's murder case. David agreed, surprised to learn she had never shared this story with any of their old schoolmates before. David began searching for the original case file, only to discover it had gone missing. All that remained were old news coverage and Heidi's memories. He went back and re-interviewed Thomas Egley, who refused to discuss the matter, then questioned his former girlfriend, who had been with him at the time of the murder. She recalled that night clearly. Thomas had come home late and visibly anxious, claiming he'd been out delivering food, then showered fully clothed before changing and disposing of those clothes the next day under the pretext of washing them. She never saw them again. David asked Heidi if she had any materials related to the case, and she remembered a box her grandmother had kept, filled with photos, newspaper clippings, and recordings related to the murder. Inside, they found a crime scene photo of Heidi, taken just days after her mother's death. David sent the photo for analysis. While waiting on results, his own research revealed that Loretta and Thomas had actually been friends for 2 months before the murder, which would explain the absence of forced entry, suggesting she had let him in willingly before he attacked her. David proposed exhuming Loretta's body to try to recover a DNA sample that could be compared against Thomas, now that genetic testing had advanced significantly. Heidi agreed, despite how difficult the decision was. But it turned out that moisture at the burial site had degraded the remains, making it impossible to extract a usable sample. Even so, David spread word that a new DNA analysis had successfully been completed, hoping to provoke a reaction from the killer. Around the same time, a closer re-examination of the old crime scene photo revealed something significant. Loretta appeared to have written the letters T and W in her own blood, possibly a final attempt to write her killer's name before she died, matching the first letters of Tom. Police then received a call from a woman named Lisa Carter, Thomas's neighbor, who told them that after hearing about the exhumation, he had asked her to take care of his dogs in case he was arrested, which raised her suspicions. She volunteered to help police, and they gave her a recording device to gradually get closer to him and try to draw out a confession. After several visits, Thomas finally confessed to the entire crime. He explained that he had gone to see Loretta that night as a friend, and that she had welcomed him in willingly. During their conversation, he proposed marriage, and she flatly refused. She had told her sister days earlier that she didn't feel safe around him. She went to the kitchen, and when she came back, he had lost control, grabbed a knife, and brutally attacked her before fleeing. According to his neighbor, he recounted all of it with no apparent remorse. In 2016, Thomas Egley, by then 76 years old, was arrested, and in August of that year he was formally charged with murder and sexual assault. In November, he was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 10 years. Heidi expressed her hope that Thomas would spend the rest of his life behind bars and never see freedom again, vowing to continue following the case to make sure he is never released.